Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz, and I am back with a fun interactive shape card for you today. I have a fabulous retro Santa dancing on a coffee cup. So I'm starting with the coffee cup shaped card, and I've cut the main piece that cuts the card itself, and I am just masking off half of it. So I have some mint tape sort of right up against the score line there, and then a little bit of scrap paper just to cover up the rest of it so I don't stamp on there. Then I'm going to grab this retro snowflake wrap background stamp, and I'm going to try to straighten out this coffee cup so I can get the pattern going evenly so it looks like it's going up and down, but we have the illusion of dimension here. So I'm just being really careful to get my placement centered. Then I will pick that up with my door and do a little bit more to tape down the cup to make sure it doesn't shift. I can already tell you I'm going to need more than one inking here. There's a lot of area that gets stamped in this one. So I really like a stamping platform if you have one for this. Or if you don't have a MISTI or something similar, you can always put the stamp upside down on your desk so that the stamp is facing up. Ink it up, and then when you lay your cardstock onto that, put a piece of scrap paper over the top and press really firmly with your hand. Make sure you're getting into all of those grooves. That also can help you get a really solid, really great stamping here. Next, I'll fold that in half, and I'm coming in with my blending buddy and just some leftover ink. I'm coming up from the bottom for a little bit of an ombre, and then I'll come in from the sides. When you have a rounded shape like this, if you make it a little bit darker along the edges, it again helps to sort of create that illusion of roundness. We're covering up a lot of this. There's like a little piece that wraps around the cup, the sleeve for when it's really hot, and we're going to put the lid on the top. And so this doesn't have to be perfect. This is really just the palette for everything else. There's a stencil that comes in that coffee shaped card die set that goes with the lid. So the lid is a single piece, and then I'm using some white pigment ink in my shading Sidekick, and ever so lightly bringing some white pigment ink to the edges on the bottom of this stencil, and then sort of all over in the top two openings. There's a second layer that we'll add in just a minute. At Crop and Create, Trinity Stamps taught a class, Carrie Rhodes taught a beautiful class for Trinity, and she used Lost Shadow ink. I was shocked. It looked so gorgeous. This works quite nicely, but if you have Lost Shadow, I would maybe try that one. When you go to line this up, I found that it was just ever so slightly wider than my lid, which I loved. It meant that I didn't have to worry about whether or not that band of inking would go all the way to the edges. And I am just coming in on the side. I'm not really going through the center. And when I pull this off, you guys, it looks like a real lid. Like, I'm so impressed with myself, except that it was just the stencil. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my lid onto my shaped card. Can I tell you something? This is top secret. I don't like coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I love all coffee related stamping, die cutting, paper crafting items. I don't know what it is. So I'm a pretend coffee drinker for videos like this. To decorate and create our fabulous card, we're also using the Tiny Santa. Trinity has a whole bunch of tiny people and things. There's tiny teacups and aliens and Santas and astronauts. There's now a Christmas tree. Definitely check them out because they are small. The price point is usually pretty low for these, and he's so stinking cute. So I'm just cutting out and assembling all of the pieces for my Santa, but I really wanted that retro vibe that we also get from that stamped background. And so I'm doing him in pink. We're going to have sort of a retro color palette. And then the boots aren't supposed to have fur cuffs, but I wanted fur cuffs. So I cut the cuffs that go around the mittens and put them on the boots. That also meant that I could attach the boot to the legs so it was a single piece, because we're going to put this guy on an action wobbler. I want him to move and dance around. And so there are a number of ways you could have sort of stuck like a scrap of cardstock back to attach the boots to the legs, but this worked beautifully for me. I'm assembling the rest of my Santa, and I love the hat on this because the Tiny Santa is not that much different in size from a lot of stamps. And so you can steal that hat and put it on all kinds of things. That hat will fit on the tiny alien. That hat will fit on a lot of the gnome stamps. So it's a really great way to stretch other supplies that you may have. When I go to add his eyes onto the face, I didn't want a big gluey mess. So I put a little dot of glue on the back of my hand and just picked up the tiniest little bit with the pokey end of my pickup stick. And then I can add the eyes onto that. And there's a nose that's also quite small. And that way I don't have as much oozing. I don't have to worry about glue showing where I don't want it to. There are obviously arms that come with the Santa, but I had an early sample. And I don't know what happened to my arms. So I just cut the white piece of the hat twice, and I'm going to use that for the arms, but obviously you'll use what comes in your die set. So I'm just adding our final pieces. I've got these little white trim fur cuffs to put on the mittens. I feel like you would have all the fur trim, and maybe that's true of every Santa, but this one would for sure have that. So here's the little sleeve that's going to go on my cup. And because it's in black, I'm using that same white pigment ink, and I didn't even get the ink pad back out. I'm just using whatever's left over on my brush, and I'm coming in from the side. Typically, you would make the sides darker, but this will work, right? The illusion is still the same. And then I'll go ahead and glue that onto my shaped card. If you're new to Trinity stamps, can I just say you should go check out all the shaped cards that they have. They've got an arch-shaped card, a circle-shaped card, the coffee cup. They have the Instastamp that isn't technically a shaped card, but is big enough you can turn it into one. There's a coffee mug and a pencil and a soup can. There's just so many great options, and they're a little bit different than just making a standard A2. So what I'm doing right now is adding an action wobble onto the back of our Santa, and it's just a little plastic spring. There is a flexible side and a hard side that both have adhesive on them. I like to put the hard side behind the Santa. I think it's hidden a little better that way because that side is white, and then the flexible side onto the card. I added glue because I have trust issues. And then on the inside, I grabbed this piece from the Coffee on the Go die set, and I'm just adding glue on the very bottom and just a little bit on the edges. And then there's this little piece that's like the actual coffee itself, and I'll add that at the top. But I'm creating a little pocket so I can stick a gift card in here. While the glue is still wet, I'm going to test and make sure that that card fits. And then again, Carrie Rhodes taught me to let it sit that way for a minute to let the glue start to dry before you pull it back out, and that will work a little bit better. To finish this off, I'm adding some little really flat embellishments. I think that these were only for Paper Ganza people, but you could use the Oh My Stars holographic stars to do something similar, or the twinkle dies that come in the Emergency Card Essentials die set number 2 to do something very similar. My friends, that finishes up our card for today. We have our rockin' retro fabulous Santa and a gift card holder. I hope that this inspires you and you'll give something like this a try. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.